time for Mac Geek Gab, and listener Brad brings us our quick tip of the week by saying, I recently had an application that stopped generating its sound and banner notifications. I resolved this by visiting the notification system settings pane and right-clicking the targeted application and selecting reset notifications ... A further note of interest is that the notifications actually configure and are found in a plist, which we'll put in the show notes at macgeekgab.com. I had no idea that this reset notifications per application even existed, let alone how to find it. Right-click in system settings on the app in the notifications list. More quick tips like this, plus your questions answered today on Mac Geek Gab 1015 for Monday, December 25th. Merry Christmas 2023. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab. Indeed, we are the show where you send in your quick tips like that, your questions that we sometimes answer, hopefully answer, your cool stuff found correctly. Well, that's, you let us know. That's the beauty. You send all this stuff in to feedback at macgeekgab.com. We assemble it. We string it together loosely into an agenda such that we each have a great chance of learning at least 5 new things every single time we get together. And here on this cold Christmas morning here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
Oh, and here in South Dakota, not quite snowing yet, I'm Adam Christensen.
And here, also in southern New Hampshire, where it's, I don't know if it's colder or warmer than South Dakota. Yeah. It's Pilot Pete. Good to be back. I don't know the weather. I just fly them.
You fly over the weather, Pete.
That's right. That's my goal.
That's how it works. Yep. Yeah, that reset notifications thing. Did either of you know about that?
No clue. No. Until I saw that. That's brilliant.
This is what I love about doing this show. One of the things. There's many things, in fact, that I love about doing the show. But that's like routinely, we've been doing this 18 and a half years. I know that feature hasn't been there for 18 and a half years, but it's been there for a while.
Do you know it's not been there 18 and a half years?
Well, I know that the system, that macOS has not had a notification center. so yes, I do know. Yes.
And system settings wasn't there.
Correct.
18 years ago.
But I bet that's been there a couple of OS versions.
At least.
Right? Of course. Yeah.
Per app. That's brilliant.
Yep. It's per app, and you get little choices when you go in there. And actually, let me open it up because there was something. If I go into notifications and I right click on reset notifications, it is hopefully not going to break my computer. I see my CPU pegging. Oh, there it goes. It asked me, are you sure you want to reset? The app will have to request permission to send notifications. You won't receive notifications from this app until then, which is great. It's an interesting thing to go look in your notifications list and system preferences, system settings. I found one at the very top of the list that had an icon that also looked like system settings and was like one of those websites that tries to scam you into, installing their antivirus software or whatever. So,
right.
Fascinating to go look in there and see what you've got.
More conware.
Conware. There you go. Is that you don't fly for Conware, do you?
Oh,
I was going to say, is that Nicolas Cage movie?
Con Air. That's right. Yeah. No, these are the people that try to get you to, like you say, put their crappy software on your computer and ruin your day. Yeah, exactly. But they make you think that by using the system settings icon and it appears in your notification center, it looks legit. So, Yepper. All right. Pete, you got a quick tip for us? I do. I've got a twofer today, Dave.
Oh.
You're going to get 2 quick tips in one. First of all, you can put or create a list or a smart list in contacts, which is really nice. I prefer a smart list because, for example, holiday cards. So I create a new smart list called holiday cards, oddly enough. And then all you have to do is somewhere in that list, I put the word holiday in notes. So anybody's contact that I've put the word holiday in notes, they show up on that list. All right. Well,
wait, that's brilliant.
yeah.
I mean, I've done smart things in like Mail and Finder and never even dawned on me that could exist in contacts.
Yeah. So that's what I do. And you could do it other ways, it could be, like I have one for medical, and the smart list is anyone whose title is doctor.
What?
So aside from you, Dave, my other doctor,
Dr. Dave.
yeah.
What a callback. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so you can create all these you can get really
granular.
You can drill down and separate people in your contacts in really great ways using smart list or a regular list. I mean, you can manually add them in lists. I prefer smart list.
Sure.
But then, like for my other show, I created a list of people who donate directly to the site because I didn't have a way to contact them easily. So I've created that. And then what you do is you right click on here's tip number 2, right click on that smart list and select send email to the name of that smart list. And it will create an email and put all the people in that smart list in the address bar.
You can also print envelopes from contacts nowadays. So you could print envelopes from a smart list that you put holiday in the notes and
save a bunch of time. So I would caution that when you do send an email to a smart list, it's going to put all those email addresses in the to window instead of the BCC window. So if you don't want to share everybody's address, then drag them down to the BCC Bravo Charlie.
Yeah.
But so there's your 2 for Christmas morning. Happy Christmas, everybody.
I like that.
Ooh,
that's good. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. Do you have any ways you use smart lists, or is this a new feature for you too, Adam?
No, I mean, I think we talked about a couple episodes ago how I will sometimes use it to archive photos in Photo Library. So I'll go in and make a smart album, right? And say, give me everything from the past year, and then make an archive of that. And then I now save to delete last year's photos if I want, like the blurry ones and not so great ones from my existing photo library. So I'm not taking up space with photos that are not really great, but I still want to save.
Yep. Cool. Todd has a quick tip about email for us. He says, sometimes you copy text out of one email message and paste it into another. And sometimes if that text is part of a reply chain, you get all of the quote bars, the vertical lines that show you all of that.
All 17 of them.
Yeah, you can remove those one at a time by highlighting the text, or you could highlight the whole email and it will just remove them from everything in the email. And then I think it's in one of the menus, but Todd says you use the Option, Command, and the apostrophe key, and that will start removing quote lines. If you remove the Option key from that and just do Command apostrophe, it will add quote lines. So you can control these back and forth if you like. Yeah, it's a good tip. It's one of those things that I use routinely and it never thought to share here on the show, but it's super helpful that you can take those out and you can get them all the way down to nothing. So, yep. And you can also go to the message menu and choose make plain text if you wind up pasting in something that has like weird formatting from a previous email, and it will remove all the formatting from that message and truly just make it plain text for you to ship off to whomever you want to.
That's how I've always gotten rid of those, is just make it plain text and then put it back in and reformat it as needed. But that's so much simpler. Very cool. So much
simpler. Yeah.
There's another one for me.
Yep. I love it. No, it's great. We talked last episode about creating apps from web pages a little bit, and I mentioned the apps from BZG Apps, Coherence, and Unite. And I also mentioned that I had never used the new thing in Sonoma where you can add to dock and essentially just create a Safari, an application based on a Safari window. And so I went and messed around with that after we finished the show, and it's great. We have a Google Doc that we keep all of our running agenda in. If you're watching the live stream, it's at macgeekgab.com/show notes. You can see us editing it, and it's just a Google Doc. I save that into I went to the file menu in Safari and I chose add to dock, and now I have it there in my dock, and you can even go into the preferences and give it a little icon. It saves these things into your home applications folder is where those live. So you can go and delete them and manage them and all of those things. They're not buried in the system somewhere that never for you to see. And it works great. And it works the way I would want it to work. When I click a link inside this app, it opens it in Safari. It doesn't open another tab in the app, which you might want that. It doesn't do that. It opens it in Safari. But handy and very reliable and all that good stuff. And what's funny is later that day, I was lamenting how there was no Mac OS app for Threads, the new social media network or whatever from Meta. And so I was like, yeah, whatever, it's fine. And then in our chat, unprompted by me, listener Andrew says, as I've left Twitter and moved to Threads, I was lamenting the fact that there was no Mac OS app for Threads. So I created one with add to dock. And I'm thinking, how come this didn't dawn on me when I had exactly the same thought moments after using the add to dock feature for different purposes? And what's great about this add to dock thing for something like Threads is once you've created this web app there, you can resize the window and take advantage of Threads formatting as though it were, say, on an iPhone. And when you make the window sort of narrow enough, it gets rid of all the extraneous stuff and formats like you're viewing it on an iPhone and makes it really feel like an app. So think about that use it with Threads, but also everything else that you might run all the time. So good, right? Have you guys done anything with these yet?
I haven't, but
okay. Nope.
That's something to play with.
It is something to play with. Yeah. Where are we here? Oh, back in episode 1011, we're talking about the maneuver that we all do and might wind up doing after the holidays here as we get, new toys and gizmos and all of that need to be plugged in underneath our desks. The maneuver that we do when we have something under the desk, a cable under the desk, and we need to kind of loop it up and over the top of the desk without it falling. And Ed shared a name for this. He says, I think maybe it is called Cablenastics because sometimes it seems like gymnastics to get it done. I like this. This might have to go on a t-shirt. That's Cablenastics, Ed, is good. Right. We did get a bunch of comments about this, though. Do you have you weren't here for episode 1011, Adam, so you know this maneuver of which we speak, yes?
No, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Mostly it involves me lying under something and trying to fish a cable up and then somehow precariously hook it on the edge of the desk and hope it doesn't fall, and then it always does.
It always does, yeah. It involves, some form of religious deity-based pleas to keep that cable hanging
and
ever
all the
so
spiders
precariously.
Down there are no help.
They are no help. That's right. Yes, right. The spiders, the land of spiders and dust bunnies.
Yeah.
But Soccer Dad says has a tip for us and says attaching your cable to a straightened metal coat hanger has frequently worked for me. I even use this method for running cables in conduits. And that's kind of brilliant.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
that made me just think of something that seems obvious, but I don't know why I didn't think of it till just now.
Yes.
Don't they make like special tools for fishing cables through like walls?
Of course.
It's called a fish tape.
Fish tape. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't we get one of those?
I know. I know, Adam. Because
wouldn't that work? I mean, you don't have to be going through a wall. You could go.
No, you don't have to be going through a wall. That is correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Or we could follow listener Bruce's suggestion where he says, I suggest using a common beanbag. You can fit the beanbag into the palm of your hand. Use your thumb to hold the cable in place on the beanbag. Then reach up and place the beanbag on top of the cable on the desk so that the beanbag's now holding the cable. You can safely let go, come around to the top, and retrieve your thing. This is smart. I can't always, like, depending on how much room you have, a lot of times you're, kind of trying to do the hook thing. But if you've got the room, the beanbag thing makes perfect sense. So thank you for that, Bruce. Yeah, that's good. That's good. My favorite, I think, comes from Teresa, who really embraces the fact that the first time that you do this is definitely not going to be the last time that you do this in that location. Anyone who has set up computers on a desktop has had this annoying experience. If the desk is against a wall and you're alone, it becomes a trial of wills. Will the wire win? Dave mentioned he was having fun in games getting wires to his desktop, and I remembered having to stop and leave this tip, which may help others. Depending on the wires in question, check out the various sizes of 3M command strip wall hangers for pictures. It's very easy to stick them on the back of the desk near the top, making sure they are sideways. So normally you would hang a command strip vertically. This is sticking it on horizontally. And if you've never used command strips before, oh my gosh, these things are amazing. They save you from having to tack into your walls often. It's awesome. So you should be able to wedge the wire into the hanger because they are plastic and will give a little. It will stay there while you get to the top of the desk, reach over and grab it to plug it in where you need it. And they're also clear and are little visual clutter. And of course, they're on the back of your desk. So yeah,
Nice.
They're just little. They're sticky pieces. They're pieces of plastic with sticky backs that have little hooks on them. And the idea here is you have the hook sideways, and you just use the hook is sort of a V shape, and you sort of wedge the thing into the hook, and you're good to go. And you can even leave it like that if you really want, so that if you unplug the cable, like if it's something for your phone where you're not always plugged in, the cable doesn't fall. It's just waiting there for you the next time you need it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then Allison wrote with a hint too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Honey, can you help me with this, please?
Right. Yeah.
There is that.
If you're not alone,
if you're not alone. Yeah, most of the time you are, though. That's the problem.
Of course you are.
Why is that? Like, why is it that it's rare that there's anyone there?
I know why. Because you don't want to pay the divorce attorney when you try to set up a computer with your wife or your husband.
Exactly.
Oh.
The other one is I tend to get foul-mouthed and frustrated, and my family doesn't like to be around me when that's going on.
Right. But if you could solve the problem of having to perform Cablenastics, you might be less foul-mouthed and frustrated.
Well, there's that. Yeah.
I want to comment on the command hook thing. I just did this recently for when we set up our Christmas tree, because we had to put it, or we wanted to put it in an area where it's nowhere near an outlet. So I had to run like an electrical cord along the wall, and I used these command strip hooks.
Yep.
Cord clips to route that cable. So what's great about that tip is not only can you use those for getting the cable up there, but they're great for just routing cables around wherever you need to route them. Get them out of the way.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty inexpensively, too. Like you're not, putting in Panduit or fishing wires through walls or, Yeah.
I mean, it's not quite as, clean as the conduit stuff if you get the long pieces of that. But
yeah, of course.
It works. And what's great about the command strip stuff, right, is that has that little pull tab, so it's not going to like ruin your wall or your surface or whatever like that when you need to go remove it.
When you need to remove it. Yeah, they're
we'll
great for
paint with you.
Yeah, I did not know about command strips until we moved my daughter into her dorm room at her freshman year of college. And she's like, oh, yeah, we just got to get a bunch of command strips. And I'm like, how's that? What's that? And she's like, I'm like, oh, yeah, you just tack into the wall. And then when you move out, you take the screw out of the nail out of the wall and you put some toothpaste over it and you're good to go, like everybody else does. And which is another tip if you don't know of that one. Yep. Only do it if you're not planning on moving back into that same place, because it doesn't actually, like, that's not, it's not like Spackle where it just hides it visually. But and she's like, no, command strips. I was like, what? And they work amazingly well. And like you said, Adam, they have this little pull tab that releases them generally without stripping the paint off the wall.
Yeah. If you have a decent paint job, paint job,
it might strip the paint off of dorm room walls because it's like one thin coat. Right. Yeah.
So and I've got one other kind of tip, not techie tip, whatever. You mentioned conduit, which brought me back to when we put our pool in many years ago. You got over 150 feet of conduit. Well, how are you going to get the line through that? Well, I watched the electrician, and the way he did it is we laid the conduit, and he took twine. He put the twine in on one end, and he ran the shop vac on the other, and it sucked the twine through, and then he tied it to the electrical cable, and then we were able to get it started that way. So that's how we got. You've blown my mind here. Yeah. Like I've known about like keeping string in conduit, right? Yeah. Like you always want to leave string in conduit so that you can pull a cable through or whatever. And well, how do you get it there?
But how do you get the string there in the first place? Yeah. Vacuum.
Use the shop vac. Like,
of course.
Yeah.
Dude. Yeah. Yep, that would do it. That would do it. Tie it on the other end.
Tips.
Tie it on the other end first before you suck at the shop vac, because otherwise you need to bring the shop vac to the other side.
You're going to have a ball of string inside your shop vac.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah.
Oh.
Huh. So. Brilliant. Oh, I love this.
Very cool.
This is great. That's good. Yeah.
I think we should get on to some Christmas questions, Dave.
Okay. John asks, I'm upgrading my home Wi-Fi network from a Wi-Fi 5 Deco setup to the Wi-Fi 6E Deco setup. And he says, well, my password for my Wi-Fi 5 network was and is excellent. I've been hesitant about changing it periodically because I have about 4,500 IoT devices, all are HomeKit or Matter devices or whatever.
Whoa.
I may have embellished there, folks. I think he said 45, but it becomes like 4,500 when you have to change
every one of them.
the Wi-Fi credentials on every one. He says, but I know it's going to be a huge pain to migrate them all to my new network if I use a new password. I also have dozens of automations, et cetera. I figured before I do anything rash, I'd ask your opinion on whether it makes sense to change the SSID and password with my new network or make the new one exactly the same. My current password is 20 random alphanumeric characters, but it's the same as I set up almost 6 years ago. I use one password to store all these things. What do you guys think? Adam, can I put you on the spot? Do you have advice for this?
I just keep the same password.
Oh, yeah. Same.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, I'm assuming he's like me, and when he set it up, that password is only on that Wi-Fi network, and it's only ever been used on that Wi-Fi network. So unless that's been compromised in some way, which seems highly unlikely, I see very little risk to not changing. I mean, I know the best practice is change your password frequently. That is one area where I tend to not to, because again, I've moved to the practice of not using the same password everywhere. I have different passwords. They're very long. I use 24 characters random with one password, and like, good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck.
It also depends on the threat environment you're in. If you're on 2 acres alone, you're nowhere near as much as in an apartment building where everybody's network is there.
That's fair.
So.
That's true too.
My advice matches yours, Adam. Is absolutely leave the password the same. Dear heaven, like, I can't even imagine what my life would be like if I had to change the password every time I like tested a new Wi-Fi system or something.
Something about
always
foul mouth and frustrated.
you
goes
talk
to mind.
about foul mouth and frustrated. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No, thank you. I years ago, and I'm curious what you guys use for your Wi-Fi passwords. I use the minimum for the original like WPA, like the WEP rather, was it required a minimum of 10 characters. And so I standardized not just for myself, but for clients that I was working with at the time, because I knew they needed to have a password they would not forget, because they were going to need it for their devices in the future. And when a friend arrived at their house, like all of those things. So for myself and all of my clients, I standardized on something that we all know that is 10 digits long. And that is your phone number with area code in the US anyway. 7-digit phone number, 3-digit area code. And so this was back in the days, of course, when everybody had like a house number. That's less common these days, but the practice works. And so that's our password, is our, well, now old house number, but everybody knows it and it's fine and it works out great. And but that's always been it. So yeah.
Dave, you taught me that, and that's still mine.
Is it really?
It's 17 years later. Yeah, that's still my old landline number. Yeah. Makes it so much easier.
How about you, Adam? Do you have a terrible to guess and communicate? I guess terrible to communicate would be the password.
Oh yeah. No, you would never guess my Wi-Fi. It's randomly generated 24 character long from, but I mean, now with what Apple's built in, like if someone comes over, it's like tap the thing. I also I have a guest one that's not as difficult, but with the guest one, I also, well, I don't have it in this house. I had it in my old house. I printed it out as a QR code and stuck it on the wall, and it just said guest Wi-Fi, and you could walk over and scan the QR code, and it would get you on the guest Wi-Fi network at my house.
Yes.
So no one ever had to type the password.
Yep. No, here in the studio, I have a QR code. I put it on the beer fridge because I figured that everyone will see that comes over to rehearse or podcast in the studio. So, And
I do maintain a separate guest network from my home network.
Yeah. I probably
only family gets the home network.
Yeah, that's smart. I probably should do that. I haven't. I just give everybody my home network. It's fine. Yeah. Speaking of my home network, my general setup is that I have a Synology router. These days it's the RT6600AX, and then I often will leave most of the time I leave the Wi-Fi on that disabled, and I use whatever my favorite Wi-Fi mesh du jour is. For a long time it's been Eero, and that's kind of been my default just because it's so smart and great at doing things. But it had been a while since I tested Synology's Mesh, and I thought, I need to give this another shot. The last couple of times I tested Synology's Mesh, it did not go well. It was immature is probably the right term to use. So I moved over to Synology's Mesh, and my way of doing this is I set up, the secondary mesh with a different name, same password, by the way, but different name. So, it'd be my network name -Synology or something. And then I use it only on my devices and for a day or two and make sure everything seems okay. And then I rename it to match my main network name, and then go into, in this case, the Eero setup and change that network's name to something else. So all of my devices just naturally flow to, the network that I want to test as the primary. And I have to say, the Synology meshing has truly matured. Not only is it super reliable and we've had absolutely zero problems with it, but the entire setup process of it is so much better than it used to be. I remember doing it in the past. I had to log in manually to each of the mesh points and update the firmware to match the firmware that was on my main router. And I thought, okay, well, I've got some time. Like, I'll do this. And it did it for me. It found the mesh point and it was like, hang on, I got to update the software on this. And it's like, oh, look at you go. Like, of course. So really, my opinion on Synology Mesh has changed, and this is thanks to a lot of you who have been using it and said, you should give this another shake, and so I did, and it's been fine. Truly, we haven't had any issues. The back of our house, like the patio that we have, which is on the ground floor, off the back of our house, is interesting because the way our house is, it's on a little bit of a slope, and the front of our house appears to be 2 stories. The back of our house, because of the slope, appears to be 3. Our finished basement sort of comes out on the back. But what that means is the back of my first story, my basement story, is all concrete, other than like doors and windows. And Wi-Fi does not go through concrete at all.
I would assume that concrete is probably surrounded on 3 sides by piles of dirt as well.
And piles of dirt. But even on the one side where it's not surrounded by piles of dirt, the concrete and, presumably the rebar in there that's holding the concrete.
Verdict gauge going on there.
Bouncing things going around. Yeah,
correct.
It all around.
Like, even with a door there, like if I get perfect line of sight through a glass door, I'm okay. But otherwise, it is no bueno. So finding the right place to position a mesh access point to get to the outdoors, because I like to have Wi-Fi on my patio for like Sonos and things like that, is always a trick. So we're, refighting that particular trick. But other than that, no issue. And that has nothing to do with Synology. That has everything to do with just physics, So, yeah.
So my trick on that, Dave, is I actually have the mesh router sitting on a windowsill up on the 3rd floor on the back of the house.
Yes.
I was going to tell you the same thing. So I'm using the Orbeez. I used to use Eero as well, but I switched to Orbi when we came over here. And to get to my office, it's a little distance, but I have window-to-window sight of my daughter's room. So there's like one in the window over there and one in the window over here. And they just...
Yeah, that's what I need to do. We have a perfect window to put it in, but it's in our perfect window for Wi-Fi location, but it's in our living room.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like a bay window, and it's really kind of a visual, like it's a thing.
You don't
and so,
block that.
It's like, oh, what's that? Oh, it's
you probably need to get. I think they make outdoor ones now too.
They do.
You sit it just like outside.
But I need to get signal to it somehow. Yeah. Like I would need to run Ethernet to the outside. Like that's the problem is getting my problem is getting Wi-Fi to the outside. It's not a very long haul. It's just a tricky haul is what it is. Yeah. But I gotta think more about this. There's maybe even just putting it up near a window upstairs in the house would be enough to do it. So. Yeah.
If I was really smart, the old owner here had run a bunch of Ethernet over the roof in the other house.
Oh.
It's really poorly done, but there is an Ethernet cable that sits out, goes from inside to outside.
Yeah.
And I could probably just bury a cable over here to the office. Just dig a trench and a shallow trench and lay the cable.
It doesn't need to be very deep. If you they make direct burial Ethernet cable, and we have it here. The previous owner did it here, and I did it with my father-in-law at his house. He had this house on an island, and he wound up buying the neighbor's house, and he didn't want to pay for 2 internet connections. I'm like, yeah, obviously. And so we buried it maybe 4 inches, maybe. On the parts that you would walk over, right? The parts where he wanted grass. And then there was woods in between the 2 houses. We literally just laid the cable on top of the leaves in the woods until we got, to the edge of the woods near the second house and then buried it for as long as we needed to. And that was that. And it's fine. That direct burial cable will deal with, ice and snow and all of those things and survive very, very well. That direct burial cable is no joke. I will say, though, put something on either end of that cable to insulate you from lightning.
Grounded.
Yeah. Because otherwise, any lightning strike close by, that becomes, your lightning rod, if you will, and blows up things on either end. I use the APC Protect Net adapters, and they're inline Ethernet surge protectors is what they are.
Nice.
There are ones from Ubiquity, and I can't remember the name of it. Somebody was talking about it in Discord, but Ubiquity makes them too, and they're somewhere between $10 and $25 a piece, and get two of them, one on either end, please. But yep,
Cool.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my mesh Wi-Fi with gigabit Ethernet works.
Really, you're able to
gigabit, internet connectivity. We have gigabit here. So
is that what we're on right? Is that what you're on right now, doing our live streams and all that?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. If you had told me that's what you were doing, I would have freaked out. But so, yep.
I use Zoom calls all day, and it works great. I mean, honestly, what I'm getting out here is probably more like 300, 400 at that point. I'm not getting the full 900, but
yeah. Well, you don't need that much. Like, right now, I mean, I'm streaming video out for this show, and I can see that my upstream is about 240K. So it's more about the latency, the latency of it, which clearly is not an issue. So yeah.
And I didn't realize that Synology had mesh routers. No,
they have for quite some time.
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
right by me.
Yeah, you can mesh with everything except the 1900 AC. So the 6600 can be a router and or a mesh access point. The 2600 can be a router or mesh access point, and then there's the MR 2200 AC, which really truly was built to be an access point. Yeah. But I think you can also kind of use it as a standalone router if you really wanted to.
Wow. Okay.
And then there's the WRX 560, which is the newest one, and that also is a router or a mesh access point. So yeah, no, it's very smooth and slick. I've been impressed with it. Yeah. So, in fact, it was getting your VPN set up last week, Pete, that sort of dug me back into SRM, the Synology Router Manager. I was like, I'm in here now. Not like I didn't add it to yours. I added it to mine. But it was like, like my head's in this. I might as well just kind of keep tugging on this thread. So it really wasn't that difficult. They made it easy. So I don't know. Where are we here?
Kirit, I think.
Kirit, thank you. Yeah, Kirit has a nice little networking tip. Says, I'm writing about the second internet service in my house, which may not apply to 95% of the audience. I'm not convinced of this, with most of us relying on our home internet connection for some portion of our jobs. I think what Kirit shares with us is relevant to more than just 5% of us. He says, I have high-speed Xfinity service in the house, which is spread in our rather large home with a router and multiple access points. Generally, we get 800 to 900 gigs down and is very reliable. The problem is we are a very much internet-dependent household. Our two daughters frequently visit and work from home, and I also do a lot of remote work as well. 2 to 3 times a year, because of weather or some construction, the internet goes down for several hours and sometimes a day or two. It's not frequent, but when it happens, it feels catastrophic. So I wanted a backup plan, but was very hesitant and to do something that was expensive and high maintenance whenever I looked. I got a T-Mobile home internet box for $50 a month. I installed it myself at a great location. There's an app on the phone that helps you figure out where your best reception is. Then I hooked up 5 Eero Pros on sale at Amazon on Black Friday. So the cost was $500 for the Eero Pros and $50 a month for the T-Mobile box. And it is amazing. I get anywhere, everywhere in the house, I get 600 meg download speeds, and both internets are independent from others. So I can jump from one Wi-Fi network to the other. Mine is an expensive solution. He says, but if someone like me doesn't want any blackout times, it's perfect. So, this works. There are a couple of ways to make this less expensive. One of them, Kirit, is definitely not going to want to hear, because Xfinity in most locations offers their own version of this, which is much less expensive, and it automatically kicks in when your, cable internet comes out. You may not have this available to you, Kirit, so perhaps this wasn't an option. But yes, it's doable. The other thing is some routers, and the Synology routers are amongst them, will allow you to set up not one but two internet, like WAN connections, and have them either do load balancing or failover, and you pick the primary and the secondary, and when one fails, it just automatically cuts over. You don't have to switch Wi-Fi networks, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, your solution is robust because you can pick which one you want to be on. That you don't quite get that with the others, but yeah. Have either of you messed with like the T-Mobile home internet?
No. I was going to say, I actually appreciate it when my internet goes out because it means I get free time off.
There you go.
Well, you could
Sorry,
have
my internet's
this.
down, people.
Yeah,
I can't work today for the next 5 hours. All right.
Yep, you could have this. You could have a backup connection that is private and yours,
Right,
and no one knows about. So when your primary internet goes down, you can still Netflix yourself. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can still Netflix on my, on my cell phone connection usually. Like usually if my internet's down, my, Verizon isn't down or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I in a pinch Wi-Fi hotspot it or whatever, and that's enough for me. But I mean, he's talking about a whole family, with multiple people needing, it's not a one-off thing.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I know it's a good thing. I mean, and I think we've already talked about this in the past. The other thing that you would want to support that, and I'm assuming he's got it, is battery backups for your routers.
Yep. Yep. And I recommend a battery backup that is dedicated just for your router and your Wi-Fi access point. Well, initially I put one on like my whole network rack of things. But when you're also running, a Synology disk station or three that have, spinning hard drives in them, that battery power doesn't last very long. You might get 15, 20 minutes out of it. Whereas if you're only running your router, these are very low power devices, you get, hours or sometimes days, depending on how much battery power you have. And that can be a game changer. So yeah. Yeah, get two UPSs and dedicate one for the low power stuff. Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. I like it. Yeah. You can, with the Synology routers, you can tether your phone to them via USB and have your phone's Wi-Fi or your phone's hotspot. It's not Wi-Fi from your phone, but shared via your, Synology router too. Obviously, you may wind up using lots more data on your phone than you normally would. So, be prepared for that. But that it does work in a pinch. Yeah. All right.
David.
Yeah, you want to take us to David?
Yeah. To date, I bring my iPhone 15. Oh, let me start higher.
Sorry.
I am a one carry-on
I set you up for failure.
Traveler. Yeah. So he's traveling. He's got one duffel bag. He says, today I bring my iPhone 15, USB-C, AirPods Pro, and my tiny Anker Nano charger. The phone charges overnight, the AirPods while I shower and eat breakfast. I will need to travel with my M1 MacBook Pro from time to time, but don't want to lug that huge charger. I'm thinking about it. I don't need to fast charge. Overnight is fine. My AI engine informs me that the M1 Pro can run indefinitely at 30 watts. So I'm thinking about getting the Anker 47 watt 2 USB port charger, which folds and it's a gallium
nitride. I think so.
Yeah, fast charger so it's super small. And he says, I assume that running that overnight, the charger will adapt to push the full 47 watts to the laptop when the phone tops itself off. Do you think this is sufficient, or should I bump up to a larger 65 watt charger for more headroom?
I think the 47 watt is going to be fine. I basically do this now. I do it with an M1 Air. Now an M2 Air. So it consumes less power than a MacBook Pro. But I did have that M1 MacBook Pro for a short stint, and it charges fine. Like you said, it will even charge on a 30-watt charger. It's not like the Intel days where I think the Intel, like the 16-inch Intel MacBook Pro, I don't think 30 watts was enough to even hold a charge. Like it would delay the inevitable, but I think that was it.
No, that's the machine I have. It's a 96-watt machine.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, exactly.
And I know this because I have a dock that supplies that, and I have it plugged in now, because if my battery is totally dead and I connect it even to that Anker dock that should supply 95 watts, I've got a bunch of other stuff plugged into it. It doesn't provide enough power. I have to plug in at least to get the battery up enough where the machine will come on, and then it can kind of hold the charge, and it'll charge it slowly. But nope. Yep. But the new machines, they don't require a ton of power.
No, they're super efficient. I was thinking about you the other day. I was packing to just go overnight to Boston, and I don't even think I brought a charger for my laptop with me. I'm sure I had something that could have done it, but I was going away overnight and my laptop was charged. Like there was no world where I was going to need all that juice that was in it.
Remember the old days when you couldn't do that?
Correct. And I was thinking about those old days, and I was thinking about you, Adam, because I know you aren't yet on an Intel laptop. And I thought, that I've learned to take for granted. All right, you weren't yet on an Apple Silicon laptop. I've learned to take for granted the 15 to 20 hours of actual battery life on a laptop. And I think if you were in a scenario where you were traveling more, that would probably be the thing that tips the scales for someone.
Oh,
like
I'm close. I'm close.
Of course you're close. I understand.
This machine, I'm trying to remember, is it 2018 or 2019?
Yeah.
I don't remember which it is. I think it's 2019.
Okay.
So it was the last of the Intel, I think.
Yeah.
So Santa didn't bring you a new laptop this morning, is what you're saying.
I mean, Santa could bring me a new laptop. I've just chosen that, this has actually been serving me and continues to serve me. So I don't see a real need. Like Dave is saying, if I suddenly was traveling more, and I have an M1 for work. So
that's right. I forgot that you're, yes.
I could do that. But I mean, that's not my machine. That's my work machine. So.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So right. So you've
experienced it.
You've experienced it. That's the right word. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
that's right.
Honestly, I've often thought about replacing this with a desktop machine because I don't go anywhere with it anymore. And when I do travel, my iPad works great. I probably get a new iPad. I'll probably get a new M series iPad before I get a new laptop, to be honest.
That's interesting.
I love my iPad with the keyboard, and the only problem now is that I can't even remember which generation. I think it's a second gen.
Yep.
11-inch iPad Pro.
Okay.
And the only problem there is somehow it now has a little tiny hairline crack down in the lower part of the display. Oh, and part of the pixels have gone out. So it's starting to die.
Okay.
Like, literally die to the point where I'm like, I should probably just replace this. So
I mean, I know of people like you that when you travel, you are comfortable leaving the house with just an iPad. Yep. What is that like? Maybe I should ask a more specific question that I hadn't really sat down to prep, but my fear, my concern in doing that is I would need to do something that is difficult, if not impossible, to do on an iPad. Like, a server would go down and I would need to like SSH in and work with it there. And I know that I have the prompt app from Panic on my phone and my iPad. Like with the keyboard on your iPad, are things like that functional? Like, could you really? Okay.
Yeah. The only thing that I can't do on it, and again, I'm not generally traveling for work anymore.
Yep.
Is the only thing that I can't do is, as you know, as a web developer, I like having set up a local dev environment. So I run Apache, I run MariaDB and everything locally on my laptop when I'm doing development. That you can't do on an iPad, obviously. But that's just me being lazy though, because like there's so many web-based. I could set up a web server.
You could set up a cloud-based dev server like most people do. That's right. Yeah.
So that's just me. That's just a me thing. I just haven't wanted to change my workflow. But I mean, honestly, it'd be probably better to set something like that.
If you did that,
S3 server, or, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. If you did that, or a Linode or something,
Linode
could you then from your iPad, if the dev server was living on a different machine somewhere, could you do most of the development, or at least in a pinch do enough from your iPad alone?
I've got FTP client, I've got transmit still, FTP client still works. So like all that stuff, super simple, like you said, SSH. I mean, honestly, I could set up my server environment on my Synology. I just haven't done that either.
Oh, that's right.
Using Docker.
Yes,
like Docker
yes, of course.
Or just set it up straight. Like there's a million ways to do this to solve this problem. I just haven't.
But yeah, that accepted, you would be able to be functional with your job and everything else just on the iPad. Yeah, I need to open that door again for myself.
It is so tempting to do that, to try that. Yeah, because I have, my biggest thing has always been recording my other show.
Yeah.
But I have, because StreamYard, the way it works, it takes the file up. We've had several guests record from an iPad, and the microphone on that is even really good.
Yeah,
now,
and
obviously you could take a hub and plug it into the iPad, so I can use these nice microphones. There's no reason not to do it, and it's certainly lighter than my MacBook Pro 60-inch.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I've always had like a small MacBook Air. Yeah. So it like the difference for me between an iPad with a keyboard and a 13-inch, or now I guess it's a 14-inch Air. I mean, there's a difference. Don't get me wrong, but it's not a massive difference. So.
But the keyboards now for the iPads come with trackpads.
Oh yeah.
And you set up the hub and.
I'm pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, that Jason Snell still does a lot of his entire podcast production flow on an iPad Pro.
Totally. That's right. Yeah, he does. He does.
That just cost me a lot of money. Son of a gun.
Yeah, that's true. We teach you how to spend a lot of money to make yourself feel really good about a marginal gain of something.
Yeah.
That's right.
Lighter backpack.
A lighter backpack. There you go. That's right. Yep. Yeah. All right. This is good. I like this, Adam.
Oh, I also wanted to mention, I told you guys earlier, so Anker, I love them. Like these nano chargers are incredible. All their chargers are incredible, and I love their cables too. And so like I maintain, because my family is constantly, I need a new cable. I just started maintaining a store here behind me, an Anker store. I buy batches of cables in like 10s or 20s, and chargers. I have extra nano chargers, and inevitably one of my family members is going to go, I need a new charger or whatever. And it's like that. All right, come to the store.
Do you make them pay you?
No.
Well, I mean, there's a convenience fee as well, in addition to the cost. Like, it's right here, same day delivery.
Part of their problem is they like those long 10-foot cables and those things. I mean, Anker makes great ones, and they're not too expensive, but they don't last.
No,
they'll
any
last
10-foot
about
cable.
A year or so. They're
exactly.
just too long.
Yeah, they're too long.
And
right.
Too much strain on them when they're pulling them around and stuff.
When they're yanking them around. Yeah, exactly. Yep. All right. Let's see. I want to let's do Jan here has a question. It says, over the years I've had multiple personal and work Macs and multiple time machine backups for each computer on separate hard drives. Some of these hard drives are quite old, and I'm worried they'll stop working at some point. Yeah, that's not a worry. It's a when, not an if. Can I consolidate the data from each of these time machine hard drives onto one new drive, an SSD or rotational? For example, can I just copy and paste the latest time machine backup from each time machine hard drive onto the new SSD? Will all of the files move over? What do you think, Adam?
Yep. I mean, this is something that came up in a similar way on the MacCast back in September. I had somebody who just wanted to know, I'm getting, I have a Time Machine drive. It's 500 gigabytes. I want to move to a larger one. I'm getting a 5 terabyte drive. Can I migrate all that stuff over? And when I did the research for it, what I found was an article from our friends at Clean My Mac 10. We'll get a link to it, but link to it in the MacCast from the 918 episode. If you want to look for that too, you can find the link there.
I'll put links to all of it here. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
But also in the show notes for Mac Geek Gab, obviously
MacGeekGab.com/show
notes. But yeah, so they had a process where you could do this, but it's an older article, and you definitely could when it was macOS Extended Journal partitioning format. So there's a whole process for doing it. You have to kind of modify some of the permissions, the ownership of the drive, so that you can move things around, and you can move the file over the backup DB file, and then reset it back up, and it should just work. I haven't personally tried it or done it, but I would presume that it does, and I think it used to work that way. I was unsure about the new APFS system only because I'm pretty sure APFS has a special way of like handling data and linking, at least from the research that I did. But the one recommendation I thought you could do is you could probably set up the new drive as, and just let it do its thing, and it might actually bring over that historical indexing. I seem to think that I did that one time with a drive. But for me, like I've always felt that the last thing I'll add to this is, for me personally, because I have other forms of backup that maintain an archive, specifically, some of the things we talked about with how I'm using ChronoSync and other things. I've never had this attachment. I mean, people have a strong attachment to their Time Machine history for some reason. And I very rarely have ever had to go back in my Time Machine history to like get something. Every once in a while. But my theory is, if I deleted it 3 months ago, then I deleted it for a reason. Like, it didn't get accidentally deleted, right? I'm not expecting that file to be there. It's great that Time Machine might have that file, but so I'm not attached to my Time Machine history. So I just would get a new drive, plug it in, and just let it do its thing and start from that point forward. But that's just me.
That seems to be where I go too. Yeah.
Yeah. Same. I would start new. I would not attempt to move my Time Machine around. But I'm like you. I am of the belief that if I deleted it 3 months ago and I haven't needed it in 3 months, I'm good. However, there is an exception that I experienced to this exact rule, and Time Machine, I believe, was the thing that saved my bacon. I had not done a speaking presentation for several months. It might have been like 6 months or something, just the way a schedule worked or whatever. And then I had one coming up, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to redo, I'm going to do the one on Wi-Fi. I need to update it, but I'll start with the bones of what I had. And I went and looked, and my presentations folder, the entirety of it, was just not there. And I'm like, what? And I looked in recent backups, and I can't remember if it was Time Machine or if it was like a clone of an old drive or something where I finally found it. I must have accidentally deleted it at some point, and because it wasn't something that I needed to access regularly, I lost it. But thankfully, I was able to bring it back, and everything was good. So I do get that there is a value to this, and that's what backups are for, and all of that. But Time Machine is so darn unreliable for me that I've learned that I can't keep a Time Machine backup. Like, if I keep one for a year, that's long for me. Once it gets corrupted, I just wipe it out and start from scratch. It's like, whatever, it's done. So if I were in Jan's scenario here, I would just, like you said, Adam, start on the new drive, but don't throw away the old drive yet.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? Like, that's your archive, and let it sit. And someday, maybe a year from now, you say, okay, well, I don't need that around anymore, and you let it go. But all that said, I think copying a Time Machine backup folder, if you will, is, especially if it, we're talking about on a direct attached drive. I know John he would back up, he has 2 disk stations, so he backs up his Mac to one of them. This is John Braun. Backs up his Mac to one of them, and then uses like Synology's hyper backup or something to copy his backup from one disk station to the other. And then when it would get corrupted, he would just copy it back and resume backing up to the restored backup of his backup, right? And so he was able to maintain a very long history by doing this. But Time Machine is very different when it's backing up to a network drive in terms of what it needs on the disk. What you said about needing the right file structure and all of that when it's direct attached, I believe you are right.
That's just from the research that I did. I think APFS works differently under the hood with how it connects things up. So I don't know if you can just direct copy. There might be a way to clone it to maintain that stuff. It would require more research than I was able to figure out. But
what Time Machine does for a network drive is it creates a disk image, and then within that disk image, it does all its magic. And all John was doing was just restoring the disk image with all its magic intact, because that's how disk images are. So
because I'm looking at mine right now, and I have, I don't know how many different files on here going back to 2022, and each one of them have a Mac-HD data thing in it, and I don't know, maybe it would work.
Yeah. No, because like it uses hard links is what Time Machine relies on, which are kind of like aliases in a sense, but at one level deeper, I'll say. A hard link, when you save a file on your drive, it saves it to wherever it saves it, and then it puts in the directory a link to where that file actually lives. Like there's the directory entry that says, here's Dave's test file.html or whatever. And then it points to where the actual data for the file lives. So there's the directory entry, and then there's the actual data for the file. With Time Machine, it creates another entry in the directory that points to the same file. And that way, that's how it rolls things forward without making multiple copies of the same thing. It only makes new copies of new things or change things. And so migrating, I think if you were to copy a Time Machine folder to a new drive, it would take up infinitely more space, because it would copy every version of that file forward.
Right.
So yeah. I think I gave Jan bad advice of just copy it. You'll be fine. I think you'll fill up your SSD.
Maybe.
Fair. Yeah, fair. Maybe the finder's smart and is like, oh, this is a Time Machine volume. Hold my beer. Let me,
Yeah.
I've just honestly never tried it, and I couldn't find any definitive answers in all the research that I did. So
yeah.
Well, the other thing that I'll add is I have 3 Time Machine backup locations. I have a little thumb drive, then I have another little oh gosh, don't get old, it's bad for your memory. Solid state drive, SSD.
Yes. Yep.
That's I think 2 terabytes, something like that. And I use that, and then I have my disk station. Yep. So I have it rotate through 3 different places. So with all the opportunity for cruft and corruption, I'm hoping that one of those will work. If then I need something.
I just use a different, like I said, different strategy for what I call archive backups, like we've talked about. I have my ChronoSync that goes to my Drobo and doesn't delete, is set to not delete. So it keeps anything that I've ever deleted.
Yeah.
And same thing with, then I have also Backblaze, which does the same thing. It has its own history. And that's where I've recovered that scenario that you described, Dave. I've done it through Backblaze. I've just went, oh, crud. Yeah, there's that presentation.
Yeah.
Like I've had to recover like old client websites. Like some client contacts me. But again, I also generally have those on my Drobo as well. So
yeah, that's interesting. Just doing a one-way sync that never deletes, that never carries forward a delete. Yeah, I like that. All right. Pete, you want to?
Yeah. I was just going to say the last thing about that. The thing about Drobo I would be careful about is I had a power supply go on my Drobo, and now I'm hosed. Because they've got some of them have different little power supplies, and I didn't have anything laying around.
Yeah, you mean you don't have a new in-box Drobo 3 just sitting on a shelf that you never plugged in or set
Sadly, I don't. I see one on the store shelf behind you there. Maybe you could send me.
There's a convenience fee for Adam's store. Recently added. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but I mean, that's even going to be dead here in a few months. We talked about that too. I'm moving everything over to a new Synology soon here, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's where I'm going. So.
Yep. You want to take us to Mark, Pete?
I do. We had a Geek Challenge answered this week.
Love it.
Oh, man. And you know what? I can't tell you, Mark, why didn't you write me 5 years ago? I've been trying to figure out.
Why didn't Mark read your future mind?
Yeah, there's an app for this, or I want to create I'm going to create this app, and it'll be brilliant. We'll make $1 billion. And no. So my problem was I wanted to be able to send Debbie a text. Right now, it's 3:00 in the morning. I'm on the airplane. We're taking off on time. I'll see you in the morning. But I didn't want to wake her up at 3 in the morning. She gets a little cranky. So, 7 a.m., 7:30, when she gets up with our son to get him off to school, I want that text to arrive. Well, how do I send a text later? Mark writes in, and I lost it. There it is. I have not done this for some time.
No, that's
all
it.
Right. Long and short of it. That's it. Yeah. Okay. Have not done this for some time, but pretty sure you can still send an email to a text, a cell phone number. You need to know that format. For example, AT&T's is the number at txt.att.net. And he gave
I
us
found a list, Pete, that I put in the show notes.
Thank you.
That translates most, I don't want to say every, but many phone carriers email to SMS gateways. So that's in the show notes, at macgeekgab.com. So yes,
right.
Yep.
And and so you can do it. Even Mint Mobile is on there, and all of those.
Yeah, they're all there.
And he gave me one, and I clicked on it, and it turns out the website has changed a little bit. It's now later.io. So set up an account. They have several pricing plans. Free, you can send up to 30 emails a month, 10 maximum contacts per account, 10 maximum recipients per email, and you can send up to a 1 year in the future. It goes all the way up to enterprise, which is, $83 a month. But for $40 a year, $33.33 a month, you can create 1,000 emails per month, 10,000 maximum contacts per account, 500 maximum recipients per email, 100 megabyte attachment per account, per account.
I think for your purposes, Pete, even the free account.
The free account is going to be just fine. Absolutely.
Totally.
But with the paid one, you can send in a text to somebody up to 25 years hence.
That gets creepy, Pete.
Yeah.
That's creepy.
I know, right? Wait,
Yep.
My dead Uncle Bob sent me an email or sent me a text. So, but you can, it isn't just one and send it later this morning. You can send them on a recurring basis. Every Saturday morning, I want it to, remind me to do this, remind me. So you get a text, obviously from an email address, but later.io.
This is brilliant.
Yeah. So cool. And it works with any email address. So, have fun with your duck.com email. And
I like it. I think the free one would solve this problem because it's probably going to be a handful of people that you would be sending these to, and you just load them up and then you're off to the races. Right. Later.io. This is brilliant. Yep. Somebody else's server. That's the cloud. Yep.
And, I just didn't think about creating it as a web side server function.
Yeah. Cool.
Another fortune passed up, Dave, because I just didn't think of it in time.
Here's my thing. I always say, if you want an idea to be worth $100, write it on $100 bill, because
there you go.
By themselves, ideas are worth nothing. It's all about implementation, right? You got to execute, and you really need to just grind it out. So just because someone has already implemented this idea doesn't mean that there's not a better way to do it, a better, implementation. I mean, look at, we weren't the first Mac podcast. Adam was, or maybe Sean King was, but right. And we certainly weren't the first Mac website with Mac Observer. We weren't, but it didn't matter. Like you do it your way, and any business can thrive. You don't need to wait for the best idea. You need to have a decent idea, and you need to be willing to put your nose to the grindstone and ignore all the naysayers and just grind it out. And of course, I will say this because I know it from personal experience. The worst naysayer is the one that sounds just like me in my own head.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Look where Zoom ended up.
Yeah. Right. They weren't the first.
Not by a long shot.
Not by a long shot. Yep.
No.
Microsoft/Skype squandered the first to market lead by somehow. I don't know how.
They were dumb.
They were dumb. Yeah.
They were just dumb.
Yep.
I agree. They
agree.
got too complacent like a lot of people do. So.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you think because no one else is, you just because you can't see your competition in the rearview mirror doesn't mean you think, oh, they're fine. I've always said, the new company has to move much faster and have far more momentum to catch up to where the market is. And then if they're a company that's used to working at that speed, they will keep moving at that speed when they catch you, and then they will move past you. And Zoom
There's
is a
no
perfect
better
example
of this than Apple, right?
Right.
iPod,
right.
iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess we could argue that they were first to market with their first product, right? Like the pre-built, ready to go out of the box, works for you mostly personal computer. Yeah. I think Apple, an argument can be made pretty succinctly that they did that first. It was not the first personal computer, but it was the first for the every person. But then again, that's kind of what Apple does. Is they're the first for the every person. Yeah.
Right.
Yep. No, you're right.
Ask BlackBerry about how the.
Right. They had the market cornered.
Yeah.
Yep. Adam, you cost me money.
Yeah.
Yep, but thankfully not a terrible amount because I bought this on a Black Friday sale. But months ago, before you joined the show, full time, you mentioned the wireless CarPlay adapter from CarLink, and it's like the CarLink kit or whatever. So I bought the 5.0 CarLink kit 5.0 on Amazon Black Friday, and I was gonna give it to myself as a Christmas present, but I couldn't wait. Because I needed to see if it was going to work. Holy cow. It works ridiculously well. You plug it in, you pair up with your phone, and then it's fun. And there's even a little web interface on it. I don't know if you knew about this, that you can update the firmware and tweak some settings and all of those things. It's fun and it works. And
it takes a second to connect. I mean, it's not super fast, but I've heard the same thing about built-in wireless CarPlay. I don't know how it compares, but yeah, it's like magic. You once you got it set up and plugged in, like I've mentioned, for me, it works 90% of the time. And occasionally it'll quirk out, but usually that just involves unplugging it for a couple seconds and plugging it back in.
Yes. Yeah. It really amazing. And I was concerned with battery life, right? Because I'm used to using CarPlay when my phone is plugged in for obvious reasons and charging. So I was like, well, what's this going to be like? I had shortly after I got it, I had a rehearsal down in Massachusetts, which is about a 2-hour drive each way. And I used this for that whole day. And I looked at my battery strength when I got in the car, and it was at 83%. When I got home, so this is after driving down, driving back, and at a 3-hour rehearsal where my phone is also sort of burning its battery as it does, and I was using it, and I'm sure I checked my email when I got there, and I probably checked before I left and all that stuff. 20% of my battery was used. That's it for 4 hours of driving and 2 to 3 hours of just normal phone time. That's not terrible. And what I realized as I dug into this is that Apple demands of people like manufacturers who are putting CarPlay in as a, like, you know, from the manufacturer thing, wireless CarPlay. If the car has a GPS antenna in it, CarPlay must be given access to use that GPS antenna when wireless CarPlay is active, so that the phone's battery isn't being burned down. And also so that you're not relying on, you know, the phone if it's in somebody's pocket or whatever. Like, they want the experience to be good. So they mandate this. The CarLink kit, at least the version 5.0, is one of the few of these aftermarket, you know, sort of hacky janky CarPlay wireless things that uses the car's GPS if the car has it. Not every car does. Right. Yeah, my car does. And so I think that's a big part of why it's not chewing up so much of the battery. And I had no idea about any of this until after I bought it, because then I started researching. I'm like, okay, why is this working? And it is interesting. I parked my car in a garage, and I can guarantee that it's not using the phone's GPS, because it takes my CarPlay far longer than it used to triangulate my position as I'm driving out of the neighborhood. I mean, it takes a minute. It's not a huge deal, but it used to be exact. Like, I would drive out of my garage and it would show where I was, like, on my driveway. Right. And now it's like, you're somewhere in this vicinity. And it's like, oh, it's not using the phone's GPS. It's truly relying on the cars. And the car has had, first of all, the car's been off. So now it's got to sync up, and it's garaged. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great little thing. I mean, they're really quirky, but I mean, just the fact that they work is pure magic.
It's magic.
Opinion. So now for battery, though, you don't have one of these janky in-car wireless charging mats, because I have one of these, and my wife has one in her car. I don't know if anybody experiences. They don't work. Like, they have to be so precision aligned. And you're driving, so the phone's like bouncing, and then the phone moves over, and it suddenly stops charging, to the point where I won't do it because there's no way I'm putting Velcro on the back of my phone.
Sure.
But like, where I've wanted to just like Velcro, like put Velcro strips so that it would stay in the exact right. Like, if it's off by a millimeter, that thing doesn't work.
I wonder.
And same thing in my wife's car.
I wonder if you could get, like, so I'm thinking MagSafe here, right?
One of those little rings.
Just a ring with you know, sticky tape.
The magnetic ring, yeah.
The magnetic ring
on the charger part, yeah.
Correct. Because
I think you can get those.
I think that would work. Well, I've seen them for, like, phone cases for phones that don't have their own MagSafe. You can, like, sort of retrofit your phone with MagSafe or whatever. And so, like, I think you could. They may not sell it. Somebody's actually going to sell it to you for exactly this purpose. Yeah, I think that I would do that for sure. Yeah.
That's
no. My car doesn't have that. My car doesn't have that. Yeah.
It's not worth it. I mean, I don't know. Maybe people can have different opinions, or certain cars are better than others. But because it doesn't have the MagSafe alignment thing, and maybe it works better with Android phones, I don't know. But with my iPhone, and it's been two cars. One's a Honda, one's a Ford. So I don't think it's. I think it's just whatever cheapo charging mat they put in there. But I think mostly what the problem is, you're driving. So
of course it's going to move
vibrating
around.
And your phone's going to move around, right?
Absolutely.
So eventually it starts out great, and then eventually just moves off the pad. And you can see it on the heads-up display. It's like, stop charging. And so you move it over, charging.
Oh, this sounds safe. Yeah. That sounds great. Yeah.
Well, I actually have a MagSafe charging, vent mounted, so that it plugs into that. So that would charge my phone, and then I can, but I can either plug it into my phone or plug it into the MagSafe charger. I'd like to be able to plug it into the MagSafe charger and then do wireless CarPlay. Yep. That's the way to go.
No, this thing is great. And I did use Velcro once I proved that the CarLink kit adapter worked, like you said, 90, I would even say like 95% of the time. Like, it's fairly reliable. Occasionally, I think twice since I've had it in the last month, I've had to do the little, unplug,
you had the
replug
5.0. I think I have a 3.0.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah, maybe it's better. One piece of advice I read, and I immediately ignored this, of course, was they said, if you get it, and once you get it to the point where it's working, never update the firmware. Like, unless you have a reason to, don't update the firmware for the sake of updating the firmware because you're a nerd. And so obviously the first thing I did was I updated the firmware because duh. But that does sound like good advice. Like, so yeah.
Yeah, I haven't touched mine. I think I did update it when I first got it because it was just out of date with whatever the current version was, and I wanted to start at the current point, but I have not updated the firmware since.
Yeah, it's probably smart. Yeah, if it ain't broke, fix it till it is. So, all right. Thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. It's been I thought we had so many other things we were going to do, and yet here we are already running it an hour and 20 minutes. So
I got to circle back one quick thing.
Okay.
Rodell and Discord said he'd been using later.io. He uses reminderguru.com also.
Oh, we will put that link in the show notes too. Okay. Yeah. Reminder Guru. I like it.
Yeah.
Reminder Guru. Somehow we will get there. Yeah. Reminderguru.com. Okay, great. Thanks for hanging out with us, folks. It's been, as always, it's been fun. It's been real. It's been real fun.
It has been.
What a way to spend a Christmas morning. Of course, we record this before Christmas, as you might guess, but it will be released on Christmas morning, and you can listen at your leisure whenever you like. We recorded it just for you. Again, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks to CacheFly for providing all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. Go check out So There I Was, Pete's podcast about aviation. You can check out Business Brain and Geek Gab with the shows that I do. You might hear me do my first ever solo podcast episode coming up maybe even this week on Geek Gab. So stay tuned for I know. Times they change. Adam, do you have any lasting advice for everyone to hopefully last them the week?
Yep, just like Santa dropping off your gifts. Don't get caught.
Wait, where is the thing? Oh, I did it. I didn't play the outro. I can't believe I didn't play the outro. Okay, well, that's fine. It's done. It's over.
Great minds think alike.
Yep.
Santa, don't get caught.
Yep.